Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov Chess Channel, and welcome to an incredible tournament that started a couple of days ago. Welcome to the TCEC Season 24 Premier Division that's going on now on the official TCEC website. So, the Premier Division is a cross-table ranking system, so everyone plays against everyone, and the best two engines out of the Premier Division will move up to the TCEC Season 24 Super Final. The usual suspects to win this whole thing, I think, are again the top engines, Stockfish, the Lila C0, and the Dragon engine, although, of course, I think the Stockfish engine is the top favorite to win the TCEC Season 24. Stockfish proved itself recently in the previous season, so in my opinion, Stockfish will again also win this beautiful chess event. So the format is sort of a classical time format. You see, the engines have 1 hour at the clock in the beginning, so it gives them, of course, more time to calculate things. So that's why I still think the TCEC competitions are the best competitions in the computer chessboard. There are, of course, these computer chess championships that you can follow on chess.com, but the TCEC competitions are a little bit different. The opening theory that they have to play is a little bit more accurate, so the engines don't have such a huge advantage in an early stage of the game. So that's why I still think the TCEC competitions are the toughest to win, but of course are also, in my opinion, the most spectacular chess events in the computer chess world. So let's start now the Premier Division with incredible gameplay by Stockfish 15 against another top engine, Stoovlees. This game had, I think, everything that we love to see in a beautiful chess game. Opening theory really beautiful and incredible middle game strategies, but then afterwards also cool endgame techniques in which you have to find really the best optimal squares in order to make some kind of a breakthrough in the endgame stage. So these games, as I always like to say, have basically everything that the chess game is supposed to have. So let's start now the game. Stockfish with the white pieces, open with the move e4. Stoovlees with the black pieces, open with move c5. The Sicilian knight to f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight to d4, knight to f6, hitting the pawn on e4, knight to c3. We have now the Chevening Sicilian with this move e6, and the move e6 is, of course, a certain flexibility. We can expect in the next couple more moves the d5 breakthrough. The d5 breakthrough is a common strategy of blacks in these types of structures. So Stockfish goes into the so-called Keres attack, and the Keres attack is, in my opinion, one of the best methods to meet really the Chevening Sicilian with immediate attack against the knight on f6. So that's why first h6 was played by Stoovlees. We have now the move h3, supporting now the pawn on g4, and trying also here to develop the bishop on g2, maybe go f4, e5, f5, and similar stuff, getting use of the spaces on the king side. So in the continuation, knight to c6 by Stoovlees, bishop to e3, queen to c7, queen to d2, again with the preparation to launch further the attack on the king side, but also castling queen side. It's a common strategy. Many times in Sicilians you see that the white castles on the queen side and black castles on the king side, so we would have sort of an opposite side attack game, and who is faster on the attack will probably win the game. But what I really liked about Stoovlees' game here also is that Stoovlees never really castled into white's attack. Many times I've seen this common mistake by black in these types of positions where black is rushing with castling. If you castle too early, then you could get destroyed, because I think we can agree already in this position that white is much faster already in attack. So black never pushed pawns here so far on the queen side. If you go with bishop to e7 and after something like queen side castling and king side castling, as I said, I still think that white is much faster. We're f4, g5, so you can basically do whatever you want, but now you are on the attacking side. So that's why here Stoovlees delayed the situation on the king side, simply played a6 with the normal preparation to push the pawn on b5, but also this move a6 comes with a certain prophylactic, of course, because the black doesn't want to get challenged also with the move knight to b5 immediately. So queen side castling finally played by Stockfish 15. We have now b5 with the preparation, of course, to play b4 and hitting the pawn on e4. So that's why knight takes c6 was played by Stockfish 15, queen to c6, and now f3, fixing simply the structure in the center of the board. If b4 happens now, then we have still our beautiful square on e2 here. We can also reroute the knight, then maybe to g3, then maybe start again to push pawns, f4, maybe bishop to g2, f4, e5, and similar ideas. I still think that white could have again a solid game. So that's why again Stoovlees didn't want to play the move b4, although this move b4 would come with a tempo, but actually what Stoovlees had in mind is to castle here queenside. So that's why if you play b4, okay, as I said, you had your fun with one tempo, but then it's even not possible to castle queenside because you expose your pawn too much, then you leave also some spaces behind. So that's why Stoovlees so far didn't touch anything also here on the queenside, played simply the solid bishop to b7. King to b1, getting out of the c file, because many times the c file attack is the main strategy by black in the Sicilian, so because that's the only open semi-file so far in the position. We have now to move bishop to e7, rook to g1. Again, Stockfish is hoping here Stoovlees castles maybe kingside, and then white could immediately attack the position, but still Stoovlees again didn't rush with castling, played so far in the center with move d5, which is of course, as we said in the beginning, the main strategic idea, the breakthrough in the center of the board. We have now the move e5, getting some spaces now in the center of the board. Of course, it comes with a beautiful tempo, and after knight to d7 now comes f4, fixing simply the structure in the center of the board. And you see, still black doesn't castle on the king side, because here we have already a space advantage, and now comes the brilliant idea by Stoovlees castling queenside, and this is perfectly fine, nothing wrong so far in black's position. We have still this amazing advanced pawn. Here we can also play something like bishop to c5, knight to c5, the e4 square is weak, so many opportunities now also for black in the position. But now Stockfish shows, I think, the brilliant strategy. First of all, knight to e2 with the control of the d4 square. We are not allowing here, for white's perspective, the d4 move. If that happens with a certain dynamic idea, then I think white could have serious problems. So that's why knight to e2 comes, of course, with the blockade idea around the square d4. Knight to b6, preparing knight to c4, knight to d4, hitting the queen, queen to c7, and now b3, controlling, of course, the weak square on c4. If you allow here black to jump on c4, then you will maybe lose this knight, maybe you lose also the light square bishop, you can lose maybe a dark square bishop. So with the move b3, you're still keeping both of your bishops on the board. So king to b8, black also improves the position of the king, simply moves it here on a better square. We have queen to a5, and here with this move, Stockfish is basically announcing an endgame, and that's what I really loved about this game. Many times, if you have followed maybe my YouTube chess channel, we have seen the immortal, brutal Stockfish, which really destroys its opponent with immortal tactics. But you see, sometimes chess is not won just by crazy tactical opportunities. With move queen to a5, Stockfish is saying here, I have enough. I have really good ideas here on the king side. I want to trade off the queens because maybe I'm a little bit vulnerable here on the c file. Now if I trade off the queens, the game is simplified, but I have opportunities here because of my space advantage on the king side, and that's what I really liked. It's a deeper strategy than many times, as we see, as I said, when we see Stockfish sacrifices maybe a rook or a knight, and then we have this immortal tactical sequences, but basically then the game is over. In 4 or 5 moves the game is over, because basically it was a forced tactical sequence. This idea, queen to f5, is really a deep strategy to reach the beautiful endgame state, because after knight to d7, Stockfish is saying, okay, it's perfectly fine. After queen to c7, king to c7, now comes the stunning f5. Look at this. Really amazing idea here by Stockfish. Of course, you cannot take knight takes e5, because here we have f takes e6. You can maybe try this kind of a bishop to c8, but now with bishop to f4, notice that you have several really dark square problems. Even if you cover yourself, there is this stunner, bishop to b5, a takes b5, knight to b5, you step back, knight to d6 is also very dangerous. King to d6 leads into disaster after something like c4. If you take with the rook, then the knight is hanging. So really stunning tactical possibilities already in the game. So that's why after move f5, here black didn't want to pick up the pawn on e5, simply played on a counter attack with knight to c5. In the game, a3 was played by Stockfish 15, because here you could try maybe this idea, knight to e4. You could maybe try to create some chances around the square c3. You could also try something like bishop to a3, but knight to e4 would be a little bit too rushed, because now white can simply play king to g2. You play something like rook to e8, and after bishop to d3, the knight has to step back from the square. The knight will not stay there forever. If white has the opportunity, I think that white would immediately pick up the knight on e4, would not really tolerate the centralized knight in the center of the board. So that's why after move a3, here Stoovlees played first rook to e8. In the game, bishop to g2, controlling e4 square. In the game, king to g8 was played by Stoovlees, and now comes the immediate idea here by Stockfish. That's the strategy that Stockfish wanted to apply, the beautiful f-file attack. And that's why really Stockfish went into this endgame, played queen to a5, traded off queens, has a better activity, has also more spaces on the king side, and now the f-file attack is really a realistic chance here for white. So in the game, bishop to g5, bishop takes g5, h takes g5, f takes e6, knight to e6, knight takes e6. You have to now play f takes e6, but now the rook is coming in a beautiful way into the game. Notice that the pawn on g7 is hanging. There are also certain problems here on the second rank, so from this point on, I think the game becomes simply a one-way ticket. So okay, this is still a struggle, this is still a battle. I'm not saying this is now completely winning for white. Many of us would even mess up this kind of an endgame. Me too, of course. In many occasions I've messed up this kind of an endgame, and that's not my point. But I still think when Stockfish has a decent advantage, and I think this is an advantage really. First of all, Stockfish has occupied the 7th rank, has also the opportunity to include this other rook into the game, because look at this, after rook to g8 that Stoovlees had to play, now this other rook is coming on f1, and there's simply no way to compete anymore on the f file. So basically the battle on the only open file is lost, and that's exactly what you should not allow in rook endgames. So now Stockfish is saying, I'm dominating the whole board. The bishop is a little bit paralyzed here by its own pawn structure. It's of course also not the optimal position of the bishop. So as I said, it's become simply a game really just in white's favor. So in the game, bishop to c6 played by Stoovlees, king to c1. You see now Stockfish sensed the possibility of king attack, because now the only piece that needs to be improved in the game is the king, and the king in endgames you have to use as an attacking piece, not something that you have to defend. Now by creating this light square weak pawn complex here, black has several problems on dark square, so that's why Stockfish uses now this path just in order to include the king into the game. So now the king actually becomes the best piece on the board. So pay good attention how Stockfish is now using the beautiful king now in the endgame. So rook to c8 was played by Stoovlees, king to d2 with a clear path to go here on the square d6, bishop to e8, rook to e7, staying on a beautiful 7th rank. Never allow here black to breathe. So in the game, rook to c6, bishop to f3, and after bishop to g6, now comes what is in my opinion the stunner of this endgame. Here Stockfish plays the amazing f5, and the f5 move is now opening the position. Although the king is still in the center, could be maybe attacked by the rook on the d file, but look at this, what happens after b takes c4. We have now b takes c4. You cannot pick up this pawn with the pawn, because of course your rook is hanging. So that's why you have to play rook takes d4. But now Stockfish grabs this important pawn, the pawn on e6, which was the backward pawn, and now the bishop is hanging, this pawn is hanging, and also the pawn on d5 is weak. So many weaknesses, but just by pushing this pawn on c4, very cool endgame technique here by the fish. So in the game, rook to c2 was played by Stoovlees, king to e3. The king is going with the plan. We're trying to get our king here on d6. Really wild stuff. So rook to c3, we have king to d4, we have rook to d3, a new check, king to c5, rook to c3, and now Stockfish is saying, I have enough, because look at this, after bishop to f7, Stockfish has this beautiful tempo of king to d4. Even if you try something like rook to f3, this is not possible, because first you play here this amazing check. If you play something like king to a7, now we pick up the rook on f3. You can pick up also the pawn, the rook, the piece on b6, and now here we can also take out the bishop on f7. We have a passer, and this is now again a completely winning endgame here for white. So see, really cool ideas here. The king is basically becoming the best piece on the board, controlling many squares in the center. After move rook to d4, king to d4, bishop to e6 was played, king to c3, now rook to c8, king to d4, rook to c4. Now the king has to step back, but now after king to a4, another beautiful move here by Stockfish, rook to b1. The problem is now that you cannot go here on a7, because you get a windmill tactic. After rook to b7, you have to step back. We can play something like this. So this is again game over here for black. So after move rook to b1, you have to go towards the center of the board. Now Stockfish plays another check. Great calculations. Look how Stockfish protects the pawn on a3. After king to e8, now king to d8, now we have rook to c3, and now the rook is controlling the 3rd rank. Now everything is compact, everything is glued together. The rook is protecting now many pawns now on the third rank. So very great ideas here by Stockfish, playing this couple of checks and then protecting all of the pawns on all of the weak pawns in the position. So in the game, rook to a5, we have king to d4, king to e7, bishop to c6, bishop to a2, and now a4, simply pushing the pawn further, king to e6, rook to c2, and after bishop to b3, here an attack by the bishop, you have to step back, bishop to d5, and now rook to b6, forces basically a trade of pieces. After rook to c6, the king has to step back, and now there is a new clear path for the king, so the king is storming again here in this amazing endgame. A beautiful move again by Stockfish, king to e4, because if you play something like rook to a4 immediately, then the king comes on this very important square on f5, and you can maybe try rook to f4. We pick up this pawn, and now again it's game over, because we have now 2 pawns here on the king side against this one, 3 also pawns. One of this will be promoted for sure. This pawn is weak. We have also better king, more active king. We have also the beautiful activity by the rook, so this is not an endgame here that black wants to get. So that's why after move king to e4, Stoovlees played first the move g6, is controlling the square f5, is not allowing here white to activate the king on a better square. But now again a brilliant move by Stockfish, king to d4. Stockfish is hoping now finally Stoovlees to get out of the 5th rank, because after rook to a4 that Stoovlees played, we have now king to d5, and finally the king is more activated. The king is now again getting into the attack. After rook to a3, attacking the pawn on h3, Stockfish played now first the king, the attack, rook to c7. The king has to step back. Now again the king comes on a better square. Look how Stockfish is playing this amazing endgame. After king to e6, if you play now rook to h3 immediately, then king to f6 comes again with the checkmate threat, so you lose time. We'll simply pick up both of this pawn, so it's simply not working. So that's why after move king to e6, first rook to f3, not allowing the king to come on f6. Now Stockfish plays rook to a7, attacks now this weak pawn on a6. In the game a5, rook takes a5, king to g7, improving simply the position of the king. We have now king to a7, king to f8, now a new check. After king to g7, now king to e7. Finally Stoovlees takes out now the pawn on h3, but now again this pawn is rolling from this point on. This pawn is simply unstoppable, because look at this, after rook to g3, attacking the pawn on g4, Stockfish simply plays rook to a7. The problem is now, look at this, after rook to g4, it seems so that black can make maybe something in this endgame, but now comes the beautiful move, king to d6, comes with a check. You have to play something like king to h6. Now after e7, the game is over, because there are not so many things that can be done in this endgame. In the game, believe me or not, Stoovlees played rook to a4. This was really stupid, sort of. I'm not sure why Stoovlees did play that, but even if you play, look at this, rook to e4, the problem is now this sequence. First of all, white plays rook to a5, and it comes with the idea to play rook to e5. So that's why in this particular position, black needs now to go with the king on g7. When the king is now on g7, now we play rook to a8, and the problem is now if you play something like king to f7, then we play of course rook to f8 to step back, and now we promote. So after move rook to a8, you could maybe start to push the pawns now, but look at this, we'll simply promote now. Here the queen on e8, you have to now sacrifice the rook for the queen, and now this rook will always catch up with both of these pawns, so it's game over. So you see, rook to e4 should be met with rook to a4. What white, for instance, should not play in this particular position is rook to a8 immediately. Look at this. If rook to a8 happens, actually it's a draw, because after g4 that black plays, now you can maybe promote. But look at this, after rook to e8, king to g5, you can maybe start to push the pawn now. Okay, white is trying finally to get the rook into the game. We just push the pawn further. You have to play rook to d1, and now we get closer with the king, and look at this, this is now a theoretical draw. So you see, many of us would, after something like rook to e4, play immediately rook to a8 and start to push the pawn and hope for a drawish sequence, but actually the king would be simply too close to the action. So that's why you have to play first rook to a5, getting the king on the 7th rank, and now you play rook to a8, because now the king is too far away from the action. So it's a whole different story. Really an amazing endgame here by Stockfish. Unfortunately, as I said, for the beauty of the game, Stoofvlees played the stupid rook to a4. Rook to e4 would, I think, prolong the game for a little bit. So in the game, of course, Stockfish accepted the challenge, and here in this particular position, Stoofvlees resigns. So there's simply no defense anymore against the promotion. So incredible game here by Stockfish 15. Also great endgame technique. When you think that this is supposed to be a draw, Stockfish finds really the most optimal moves, really the amazing ideas in the endgame stage. Also, I think it was a decent opening for both sides. Also, cool middle game strategies we have seen, especially the queen trades in the middle of the game where Stockfish went into a favorable endgame. This was, I think, the main good idea here in this particular game. So really incredible game again, played by Stockfish 15. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas for sure in the Chevening Sicilian. If you want to see more cool strategies and more cool tactics like this, check out my commented chess games played by computer series. Here's the link of our whole playlist, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.